Oh yeah, it's in here.
Did you know?
Yeah, he announced.
Alright, cool. So what like type of format would you want to go for with this debate? Do you want to just go straight into like open discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have like an opening statement or something. It's just that we like had some like short exchange about theism or whatever, right? Where you didn't have a formal argument. Now apparently you do have a formal argument. Look, I just want to see if it like goes through. So like,
Yeah,
what's the formal argument?
yeah. So I'll just send it in chat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Me presenting now. Just for the recording, it's just premise one: all particular objects derive their existence either extrinsically or intrinsically. Premise two: if it is the case that all particular objects derive their existence extrinsically, then the totality of particular objects would lack explanation, which entails a metaphysical impossibility. Premise three: particular objects exist, meaning that the existence of particular objects is not metaphysically impossible. Ergo, it can be deduced that not all particular objects derive their existence extrinsically, and thus it follows that there is one particular object that exists by virtue of itself and not of anything else.
Yeah, what inference rule is the argument using?
Modus tollens.
It's using modus tollens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, we're gonna like so just to be clear. So premise two is if it is the case that all particular objects derive their existence extrinsically, then the totality of particular objects would lack explanation, which entails metaphysical impossibility. What's not a denial of the consequent there is to say particular objects exist, meaning the existence of particular objects is not metaphysically impossible, right? But because the language there, right, the terms aren't kept identical to what they are in the consequent premise two, but that's fine. Look, because I get this sort of inference that's being made, right? I'm just like confused on what exactly it means for particular objects to derive their existence extrinsically, right? What does that mean?
Yeah. So obviously, when we're talking about the fact that objects exist, that's going to be distinct from their essence. So, for example,
Wait,
I
I'm
can
asking for a definition of extrinsic, right? What's the definition?
yeah. So when I say the term derive existence extrinsically, I mean you exist by virtue of something external to yourself.
Uh-huh. And sorry,
Yeah.
why couldn't there be... And sorry, why is it metaphysically impossible for particular objects to exist if there's just some infinite set of prior objects?
Because we're not talking about like a linear causal chain, we're talking about a hierarchical causal chain. And so if we discuss the totality of the set of infinite dependent objects, they would depend on nothing, right? Because there's nothing outside of this set, and that would just entail.
Wait, why would they have to depend on anything outside the set? Why couldn't the set just be brute?
You know what it means to be brute?
Yeah, unexplained.
Yeah, so if you're unexplained, you're explained by nothing. You do realize that, right?
Wait, why? How does that follow? Wait, by explained by nothing, do you mean like nothing is a thing causally explains it or something? What do you mean explained by nothing?
Well, my definition of brute fact and brute contingency is that there is no causal explanation that explains the existence of any fact. And so, if it's the case that you say that this thing is brute, it's akin or identical to saying, "Oh yeah, nothing explains this thing."
Yep. I'm saying nothing explains. Wait, sorry, by nothing explains it though. Look, do you mean that there's just no explanation? Is that all you mean when you say nothing explains it? Because I'll grant that nothing explains it, right? The same way that like nothing causally explains God. But if we want to say something like really weird, like oh well, it comes from nothing or whatever, right? That's not what's being said. All that's being said is there's no prior causal explanation in the set, right? I'm asking like what the problem is if there is no prior causal explanation in the set.
Okay, so there's two options we can go for, two routes here. When you said that there's no prior causal explanation,
Yep.
are you saying that this set is just uncaused, or are you saying that this set has no
Yeah,
cause?
that's right. Wait, sorry, what's the distinction between uncaused and has no cause?
So I think if we're saying that it's uncaused, like the entire set is uncaused, then we can get into the ramifications of that. But if we're saying that it has no cause, as in nothing caused it, then we can also talk about that as well. Are you saying
what
it's
about has
uncaused?
no cause? What about has no cause? We'll go down both.
When I say has no cause, I meant as in nothing caused it. So nothing would be the cause of it. What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean? Okay, nothing would be the cause of it. What do you mean by that? Nothing would be the cause?
Take nothing to be some existing subject that brings forth something into existence, I guess you could say.
Yeah, no one's saying nothing causes something into existence.
Okay, so you're
saying it's uncaused. I don't know what it means to say nothing exists.
Yeah, right. Same. I agree. I think nothing existing is paradoxical. So
yeah, that's right. What's also paradoxical is if nothing causes something into existence. No one's claiming that, right? No one's saying the causal explanation of the set existing is literally nothing. Mm-hmm. Like it's like nothing in the literal, like nothing causes it into existence.
Yeah. So you're saying the set is uncaused. That's fine. We can talk about that then. So yeah. I just disagree with the idea of the set of existing things being uncaused. And the reason why is because I don't think that the set can be uncaused if it consists of composite beings or beings with potentials. And so what I mean when I say this is that if we look all around us in our experience, we can see composite things all around us. We can see things with potential all around us. And so if it's the case that there are these composite things, they need to be sustained, or their identity would need to be sustained by something external to them.
Wait, need on what modality? Sorry?
Need. We can, I think, metaphysical. I might be wrong.
Sorry, what's metaphysical modality?
A metaphysical modality is just going to be a modality that references first principles, causes, etc., etc.
Uh-huh. So when you say something is metaphysically impossible or it's metaphysically necessary, sorry, you're saying that it obtaining or something, or the negation of it obtaining would entail the violation of one of these metaphysical laws?
Metaphysical laws, logical laws. I can show you the contradiction. I'm not sure what it would fall under.
Oh, wait, you think there's a logical contradiction?
With the idea of something being explained, or for example, a composite being explained by itself, or being explained by something that isn't external to it.
Yeah. Or not being explained at all. Yeah, wait, sorry. So to be clear, because I don't want to ramble. I want a logical contradiction in the form of P and not P, right? So I want you to tell me the proposition, and in conjunction with that, give me its negation. So go ahead.
So if we affirm that a composite being is uncaused, right? You do realize that when a composite is going to be a combination of two things. So if you affirm that this composite is going to be uncaused, right? An uncaused being would need to be simple. But if it's a composite, it cannot be simple because that's in direct violation of what it means to be simple.
Sorry, I'm asking for the two propositions that form the contradiction. What are the two propositions?
I don't know what you're asking me for.
This guy deaf? Look, I'm asking you. Look, so you claimed. Okay, well, if you're wondering why I'm asking you for the contradiction, look, there was a claim on the table. There's a claim on the table, which is that it was metaphysically that it's metaphysically impossible, right, for some composite thing to not have any prior explanation, right? And then the question from there is like naturally, what is the contradiction? And to be as clear as possible, right? So we don't get ramble dodges, right? I want the contradiction to be really clearly pointed out in the form of P and not P. But now it sounds like you're confused on how to do that, or you don't want to.
No, I'm not confused. I just was.
Oh, sorry. Then can you lay it out in the form of P and not P?
Yeah. So you're essentially saying that first and foremost, I need to make it very clear for you, Eric, for you to say that a composite being has no explanation.
Well, not just clear, but I want it laid out formally.
Eric, I'll give it to you in the form of P and not P. I heard what you said.
Yeah, go ahead.
Talk now. So obviously, to affirm that a composite being, right, or a composite being has no explanation for its composition, because in order for something to be composite, it needs to be arranged in a specific way. So for you to affirm that there's no explanation for its composition is to affirm, once again, an ex nihilo explanation. So it's explained by nothing, and that's obviously going to be impossible, as we both said.
Yeah, that's not giving the proper negation. I don't understand how you're like so confused.
Yeah, I know. Wait, I wasn't done talking, Eric.
Yeah, go ahead. I asked just for the P and not P, but sure, yeah, go ahead, retard.
P and not P, as to why nothing cannot explain the composition would be nothing has no causal power, and so you're saying that nothing, in order to cause, has to have causal power, but nothing doesn't have causal power. So
now we're back. Sorry, now we're back. Because also, just to be clear, that wasn't a contradiction, right? But now we're back to like the whole error, right? We're talking about nothing as though it's this thing causally explaining things, but no one's saying nothing is some fucking entity that exists or something is causally explaining, right, the composite things. No one's claiming that, right? What's being claimed is that the thing doesn't have a cause, right? So I'm just going to make this distinction, right? I'm going to make it very clear for the audience. There's this distinction between saying X was uncaused, right? And X was caused into existence from nothing as some entity. There's a distinction between the two, right? If you say X was caused into existence, I mean, just clearly the proposition that I promised, in the sense that one is just the negation of the other. One affirms that there was a cause, and the other affirms that there wasn't a cause.
Yep.
So yeah, no one's claiming. Sorry. So just to be clear, no one's claiming that the causal explanation of it is literally nothing, right? Like nothing is this entity that explains it. Yeah, you understand that? You understand the distinction, retard?
I don't know why you're insulting me. You need to slow down and let me talk.
So that was yes or no.
I don't need to answer yes or no. So I don't think you understand.
Sorry, that was yes or no question. I'm fine if you want to dodge the yes or no, but me personally, look, I'm not like a fan of dodging. I'm not a fan of dodging. Why is the retard so afraid?
Am I allowed to like?
Listen, I'm afraid. Well, you're allowed to talk once you give. You're allowed to talk once you give. Sorry. I'm interested in hearing you talk when you give an answer to the fucking question.
Would you like me to give my arguments, Eric?
I'd like you to give a yes or no answer to the question, retard. Do you recognize the distinction? Sorry, yes or no? Do you recognize the distinction? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Do you recognize the distinction? Yes or no? Do you recognize the distinction? This guy's terrified. Look, just yes or no? Yes or no? Do you recognize the distinction, retard? Look, right now you're getting blown the fuck out. You're afraid to answer a question. 1776 is happening again. The British are getting shit on by the United States, and I'm just asking you to answer my question. Look, this guy's like fucking terrified. Listen, blood. That's you right now. Just answer the fucking question.
Yes, I recognize the distinction.
Why is the retard so afraid to give a yes or no?
Did I not say yes or no, audience?
You didn't. Sorry, if you did give one, can you repeat it? It's not difficult. Yes or no? Do you recognize the distinction?
Yes, I recognize the distinction.
That's fine. So just to be clear, by affirming the first, I'm not affirming the second?
This guy is an autist. Yes, because they're distinct. That's what it means.
Yeah, so what's the issue with the first?
Anyways, yeah. So for something to be affirmed as uncaused, it's going to be in direct violation of a composite being, right? And a composite being does not have to be composite. That's the whole point. There's no necessary aspect of a composite being to exist in that form. So it could exist in another form. For example, if I take H2O, H2O does not have to exist in H2O. It could just exist as hydrogen and oxygen. The fact that it exists as H2O is not necessary. And so when I ask you, okay, if something is composite, it needs to have this potential for existence, or it needs to have this composition or this potential for its composition to be correct, actualized by something external to it. And you say, well, it's uncaused, it's not the same thing. You do realize that you're not affirming the first, you're affirming the second, Eric. So
sorry, is someone in the retard's DMs just like telling him to repeat the claim? Look, I asked you for the contradiction in the form of P and not P. Now you're just on some like retard ramble.
I already gave the contradiction.
So you didn't give it in the form of P and not P, you gave a ramble. You gave a conditional, then you said something cannot come from nothing. Look, no one heard you state the logical contradiction. If you want, we can go through the entire audience and see if a single person is able to produce what the logical contradiction was. No one will be able to. Sorry. No one will be able to because you didn't give one.
Take a deep breath, okay? I'm going to ask you very simply.
So you're not going to answer my question? You're going to ask me one instead?
Let me talk.
Sorry, the Dodger refuses to answer my question. Sorry, so the Dodger refuses to answer my question.
Are you going to let me talk? Sorry.
Yeah, once you answer my question, retard.
Yeah, what was the question, Eric? Go ahead.
Yeah, the question is, what's the contradiction? Not in the form of giving some like ramble or whatever, but just in the form of two propositions, right? One being P and the other being the negation of P.
Yeah, it's going to be creatio ex nihilo, but in order for me to affirm that, right, you first need to let me explain why a composite cannot be uncaused.
I don't want you. Wait, when you say cannot, there is that a logical modality?
Yeah, logical. Yes, logical.
Yeah, and then I ask you what the logical contradiction is, right? I don't want you to repeat the claim. I don't want you to tell me why there's a contradiction. I just want you to first and foremost tell me, sorry. I want you to first and foremost tell me what the actual contradiction is.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna ask for moderation because clearly you can't sustain a conversation.
That's fine. You can't answer a question. Look, maybe we need to get moderation to force the retard to answer the question.
That's completely fine. So
this guy's like terrified.
The first thing I want to affirm is that a composite does not have to exist in the form that it does. There's no necessary aspect of a composite that means that it must exist in the way that it does. And so, in order to affirm that a composite is uncaused, you'd have to affirm that something which has no potentials has a potentiality. You do see the P and not P, don't you, Eric?
So the contradiction is it is the case it has a potential and it's not the case it has the potential?
Yes, precisely.
And potential there is talking about what?
The potential to exist in that form, Eric.
I'm asking what you mean by potential, obviously.
Potential potency to exist, Eric. That's what potential.
If I ask you what you mean by potential and you say, oh, the potential potency to exist, that's not informative. Like I'm like asking this retard, what do you mean by X? And he's saying, oh, I mean X plus 1. Look, just tell me what you mean. Just tell me what you mean by potential.
Could exist in some possible worlds.
Oh, it means could exist. Yeah. How is the second horn of the contradiction entailed then?
How does the second form of the contradiction entail?
Second horn. How is it entailed by a composite object being uncaused? That it's not the case that could have been different?
I already explained this to you, Eric. A composite does not have to exist in the form that it does, Eric.
Yeah, and I'm saying, how does it not having to exist in the form that it does? Because you're saying the contradiction is it is and is not the case. Sorry, it is and is not the case that it has a potential to exist otherwise, right? That's the contradiction. Presumably, a composite object being uncaused entails that the second horn of the contradiction obtains. And I'm just asking you, like, how does it follow from a composite object being uncaused that it couldn't have existed otherwise?
Yeah, so if something is composite, it do not have to exist in that form. And so the fact that it does exist in that form means it depends on something external to it. But if there is a non-composite object, it does not depend on anything external to it.
That's repeating the claim. That's repeating the claim.
Wait, I'm not.
Look, maybe it would be better. Maybe it would be better to just.
You didn't even let me talk. Yeah, hush down. Please muzzle the dog. Anyways, a composite object does not have to exist in the form that it does. And so the explanation for why it exists in the form that it does has to be external to it. You trying to say there's an uncaused composite being is fucking idiotic. It's stupid. It's ignoramus. It's erroneous. It's wrong. Why? Because you're on one hand affirming, okay, a composite being does not have to exist in this form, and thus its existence is derived from something external to it, yet it is uncaused and it derives its existence from nothing external to it. That is a contradiction. P and not P simultaneously. Please track. Please. Go ahead.
Alright, I'm glad I've been unmuted right after this like retard has abused his perms, right? So I'm guessing that what I get to do is I gotta go like uninterrupted. So that's just what's gonna happen, right? So first of all, this fucking scoundrel, after getting backshotted, claimed that he gave the contradiction, right, after repeatedly not giving it, and then he gave it eventually in the form of, it is the case that has the potential to exist otherwise, and it's not the case that has the potential to exist otherwise. However, right, I asked, how is it entailed by a composite object being uncaused, right, that it couldn't have existed otherwise? Right, and he couldn't answer that question. All he did was just repeat the claim, which is just that composite things cannot exist without being caused by anything external. Right, so just to make sure, right, because maybe this is just a lack of clarity on my part. Maybe it's just like the fucking red code accent being like really difficult to understand. I'm gonna request, and if he rambles, right, he's just dodging. I'm gonna make a request which is just to get a formal argument, right? So I want a set of premises in the conclusion, right, where the conclusion is that it's logically impossible for a composite object to exist without, right, an external cause. So, Blessed, can you deliver the formal argument, retard? Yes or no?
I'm not going to deliver a formal argument to you because obviously if I want to make sure that the argument is valid and sound, I need to go over the premises, etc., etc. Second of all, I'm not going to allow you to tell me how to present arguments. You're not my father. I'm going to present them how you want. You protoplasmic dilettante individual. But essentially, if we're talking about a composite, right, you asked me the question, why is it entailed from being uncaused that could not have existed otherwise? When we talk about things that could have existed otherwise, we're talking about things that have parts. For example, a table can exist as pieces of wood. A piece of fruit can exist as, I don't know, slices, for example. We're talking about things that are made up of parts. However, when we talk about an uncaused, non-composite thing, we're talking about something that's essence is inseparable from its existence, okay? So you cannot break it up into further parts. You cannot deduce or reduce it into any sort of forms. The fact that it exists is that simple, right? So it could not have existed in any other form, right? If you try to take away parts or aspects of its existence, it would cease to exist, and that would entail a logical contradiction. However, if you take away or break up parts of a composite, it would not cease to exist. It would exist in a different form, right? And so therefore, the essence being inseparable from the existence of the object or of the fact is going to be what allows this thing to not exist in any other way. Is that simple? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So what I asked for was a formal rendition of the argument. It sounds like the retard isn't capable of producing a formal argument, so instead he's like going to give us more and more rambling, which, just to be clear for the audience, right, I'm not the type of person that's like interested in just hearing these sorts of people ramble, right? Because they tend to be people that are like super confused on philosophy. So I just want to get really clear, and look, I'll like fucking phrase this. Maybe we can make it valid together, okay? So like I'll like communicate with fucking Blessed, right, in his own language. Like listen, right? We're gonna get, you know what? Actually, how about this? Blessed. I'm gonna appeal to you, okay? Presumably you're not fucking completely mentally disabled. Like you're not completely retarded. Your IQ, hopefully above fucking 100, right? If you're capable of doing that, you should just like write out some rough premises. You should write out some like rough conclusion, and then we can make it formally valid together, right? Because the rambling isn't working for you. That shit's just like cringe as fuck. There's these like insane like sort of rambles you try to do when you like get me muted or whatever, because you're able to just like go off the leash, right? But I'm just like putting forward a request, which is we get premises, we get a conclusion, and then I'll help make it formally valid for you. So yeah, I don't know why the retard was talking. So yes or no, are you willing to go through a process where we make the argument for the conclusion, right? Composite objects require external causes. Are you willing to go through the work? I'll go through it with you to formalize that. Yes or no? And if no, I'm fine with moving to closings.
Yeah, what was the question? Whether we can formalize the argument for me?
Yeah, would you be willing, right, to like go through, write out some rough premises and a conclusion, and I'll help make it formally valid for you.
Well, I can tell you the premises.
For the argument for the conclusion, there has to be some external cause to composite objects.
For the argument for the conclusion, there needs to be some external cause to composite objects. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, go ahead, write it out. I'm not even gonna like be mean to you while you're writing it.
I'm not gonna write. I can say the premises. I'm not writing them out for you.
Oh yeah, say them. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first premise is going to be something along the lines of composite objects are contingent in the sense that they could have existed in another form or otherwise. Premise 2, therefore, or not premise 2. Actually, yeah, premise 2.
Wait, hold on, I'm writing premise 1 down. Hold on. I'm writing premise 1 down.
Take your time. I know it hurts trying to type when you're down.
I don't know why your rhetoric can be like struggling to formalize an argument.
You know what? Why do you like addressing the audience so much, like when you're debating? Do you think that if you talk to the audience, like you'll get like extra rhetoric points or something? Why don't you respond to the substance? I don't know what's wrong with atheists like this, man. But yeah, so premise 1 is just going to be our composite object is going to be contingent. And so it only exists in some possible worlds but not others, right? H2O, for example, is contingent in the fact that its composition of it existing in H2O or in that form only exists in some possible worlds but not others. And so, premise 2, there needs to be some explanation for why H2O exists in that specific form in the here and now, right? If you say that there's no explanation, we've already gone over the contradictions associated there. Right now, you're trying to say, well, what if it's the case that composite object is uncaused? And to be uncaused is to have no explanation external to yourself. And so you're essentially saying H2O needs to have an explanation for why it exists in that form, yet H2O does not have an explanation for why it exists in that form. So it both has and does not have an explanation simultaneously. And that's going to be the issue with why composite objects cannot be uncaused. However, if we talk about a non-composite object, such as like Plotinus's view of the one, we would have a ultimately simple thing. An ultimately simple thing, which means that its existence is not inseparable or is inseparable from its essence. And so it would have to exist in that form, right? It would have no explanation external to it because it has no potentials. It's purely like singular, it's purely unique. And so that would be the explanation for why non-composite things are not burdened by this issue. I don't know why you need formal arguments so much. You can respond to the content. You can ask me to break it down further for you. It's not going to be an issue there. Please track once again.
Yeah, I'm glad you got the fucking unlimited like hyper ramble. I'm glad we extracted a formal argument. I'll send the argument. Shut up, retard. You got your ramble. Yeah, so I sent the argument. Shut up, retard. Yeah, so I sent the argument in the side chat actually. I like wrote it down. So we're gonna like laugh at this together, right? So everyone's like looking at it. I hope so. So premise 1 is composite objects are contingent in the sense that they could have existed otherwise. Premise 2, there needs to be an external explanation for why contingent objects are the way that they are. And then the conclusion is, oh yeah, sorry, I misspelled contingent one of the premises. I'm too lazy to fix that. And then the conclusion is that composite objects require an external explanation. So it sounds like Blessed here has sort of learned from a professional named Thomas Jump, right? Where he's come up with his own inference rule, right? That takes the form of like P, Q, therefore S. But unfortunately, that's not a fucking valid inference. But aside from the fact that it's not a valid inference, right? It's still actually fucking question begging. So somehow, right, this fucking retard has produced an argument that is not only invalid, but it's also begging the question, right? Because if you look at premise 2, it's saying there needs to be an external explanation for why contingent objects the way that for why contingent objects are the way that they are. The conclusion is that composite objects require an external explanation. The conclusion of the premise is true if and only if premise 2 is true. So this guy is like fucking failing on like 2 hilarious grounds. Not only is he giving an invalid argument that's not using any inference rule, he's also giving a question begging one. So I really hope to see, well, I guess I'm going to say a few more things. So I guess one thing is I'd really hope to see, you know, how exactly he fucking defends himself from these very, very brutal allegations. And in addition to that, I wonder how he feels after being backshot repeatedly so badly that he has to have me muted while I'm fucking him. Right, so I think he's been like blown the fuck out in this debate. He struggled to give a formal argument. When he did, it was not only invalid, but also it was begging the question. And he's just like sitting here like a dumbass bitch, bro. He's just sitting here like a loser. Right. Yeah, anyways, right. Yeah, let this dumbass go.
Yeah, like nuisance. Everything's empty. It's like, anyways, you can actually respond to the content. First and foremost, you asked me to make a rough understanding or a rough syllogism. I didn't even write the syllogism. You wrote down the syllogism. So me saying, okay, these are the ideas that I would use to construct such syllogism, and then you trying to write it in a specific way that makes me look stupid, it's not my fault you ignoring this. All I'm trying to say is that if there is a composite object that is contingent, there should be an explanation for why it exists in the here and now. However, if there's a non-composite object, that explanation is not going to be derived extrinsically, but rather intrinsically, because its essence is inseparable from its existence. And so the question I'd like to pose to you is, if there is a composite object, right, can we separate its existence from its essence, right? For example, if I describe to you 3 animals, right, I can describe to you a lion, an eagle, and a fucking woolly mammoth, right? I describe to you these 3 animals, right? Let's say you've never heard of them before, and I tell you, okay, deduce whether they exist based on that essence, you'd be unable to. Why? Because there's a distinction there. But if there's a non-composite thing, I can give you the one attribute, right? The one thing that defines a non-composite being, that being aseity. And I'd say, look, this non-composite thing is aseity, and you'd be able to deduce that it exists based off of this, because it does not depend on anything else that would cause it to be contingent in some worlds or in others. It would not have any counterfactual relations. So if you'd like to respond to the content, let me know. But if you're here to just like monologue to the audience and like make fun of my accent, then you can just do that on your own time. Like, don't waste my time, buddy. Please, track. Go ahead.
All right, I'm glad. So this guy said, look, these are just some like rough ideas or whatever. Look, I just like, you just wrote down the argument in a way for me to look dumb. Retard, I wrote down what you said word for word. Like, I wrote down exactly what you said. It's not my fault you, like, said the premises in, like, this really dumb way, or you, like, set up the argument really bad. And I understand, right, that you're giving some, like, rough outline or whatever. I asked you to give a rough outline. I'm fine with that. But presumably you don't want the fucking rough outline to be begging the question. Right? So you can have a rough outline that isn't begging the question. It's clear that this one was, right? So that's just to address the preliminary stuff to his, like, entire ramble, right? I understand, look, you have this, like, really dumb question on the table. But I'm not interested in answering any questions until I get a non-question begging, formally valid argument for the conclusion. Right, and if he's not interested, like I said, if he's not interested in providing a valid, non-question begging argument, right, in favor of the conclusion that's in the argument that I, like, posted in chat, right, I'm fine with just moving to closings. Because all he's doing here is just, like, giving these rambles, being afraid to give a formal argument. So yeah, I'll just leave it there. Just go ahead.
Yeah, first and foremost, like, I don't see the necessity of me presenting a formal argument for this debate. Maybe that's your preference. Maybe you like looking at things because, I don't know, you have an issue of hearing. But I don't need to present a formal argument. The whole point of us being in a VC is for us to talk and convey our ideas. Now, if you want to go and, like, fucking text debate somebody, go ahead and text debate, my nigga. I don't care. But me being in this VC and conveying my ideas to you, and every time I do that, you say, you know what, this fucking retard doesn't want to present a formal fucking argument. You know, he's just a fucking retard ignorant. You don't want to respond. Why? Because you fear me. You're trembling right now. I lay out the logical follow or how the argument logically follows in each of my monologues, and you just fail to respond. For sure, we can move to closing if you want to do that. But I think it's very embarrassing that you failed to respond to any of the claims I made, and all you did the whole debate was, oh, where's the formal argument? You don't have a formal argument? You're a retard. Like, what the fuck? Sure, we can conclude. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad. So I'm glad this fucking ape has like started rhetorically beating his chest or whatever after getting completely dominated for the entire fucking debate, according to like basically every single person that was watching it. But yeah, so this guy refuses to provide a formal argument. No one's claiming you have to. You could just be really unclear and like be like a dumb fuck if you want to. It's just I'm gonna point it out and make fun of it. Yeah, I mean that's sort of it. I mean you can go ahead and give your closing. It's probably gonna be really fucking stupid, just like the rest of what you said.
Shut your mouth. Anyways, I know why that guy kept talking, bro.
Voice crack.
Anywho, essentially, yeah, I'm 14. Sorry, I get voice cracks. Anywho, essentially, the argument I presented was that, okay, look, composite beings need to have an explanation that is external to them. He essentially said, well, what's the contradiction with, a composite being having no explanation? And I'm like, okay, cool. So do you agree that composite beings are contingent? He never disagreed, right? He never posed any contention of composite beings being contingent, meaning that in some worlds they do exist and in some worlds that they don't. And therefore, there needs to be an explanation for why they exist in some worlds, but not others, right? And so you saying that a composite being, which is contingent analytically, right, is uncaused, which means that it is not contingent, right, but rather necessary, because it does not depend on anything external to it to exist, which is what causes contingency, is going to be a direct contradiction. And once he realized this, once those little words, filtered and processed through that minuscule brain of his, he decided to press me for a formal argument just to see my beatdown immortalized on the Discord app, right? So I don't think I need to talk too much, really. I explained why reality cannot be composed entirely of composite beings or entirely of beings who derive their existence extrinsically. And I think that this just leads to the conclusion that, oh, well, there needs to be a necessary being that has no extrinsic existence, but rather its existence is inseparable from its essence. And so we can deduce that it is based on what it is, right? And so that's going to be my conclusion. Very simple and short and sweet. Go ahead, AP. Go ahead.
Great. No formal argument. Just question begging one. Nice. Bro, if I got fucking backshotted that badly repeatedly over and over again after getting rhetorically dominated, I would fucking kill myself. Like I said, 1776 has commenced again. The British have fallen, bro. It's fucking over. This lobster has been absolutely fucking cooked throughout the entire course of this debate. And he didn't get blown the fuck out just because he was stupid, but it was because his points were bad and he's stupid. Thank you.
What a fucking rhetorical appeal, bro. Anyways, let me say it direct.